You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today, we just have some topics coming up before an election happening here in California. So we're gonna talk about some relevant things to California, what's in that election, and the government shutdown. A little bit of Trump derangement issues going on out there too. So plenty of stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to our panel today. And it's just me and Leon. Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So we've got all those topics to cover, but before we get into any of that, we always start the show off with a Liberty quote of the day, just to get everybody in the right framework, give people ideas of, who are some of the people out there that have some of these great Liberty ideas. Well, we're going pretty much to one of the pivotal figures of all of this enlightenment on liberty, and that is Adam Smith this time. So let's see here. We've got the quote right here, and it says, "There is no art which one government sooner learns of another than that of draining money from the pockets of the people." And boy, I tell you, if there isn't anything that he didn't recognize, Adam Smith, is that, boy, government sure was good at, shaking the people down. And just in case people don't realize who he he was a moral philosopher in Scotland or over in the UK back around the time of our revolution. And he, in fact, in that same year, 1776, he published his famous book called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations. Oftentimes people just call it the Wealth of Nations. But that is the basis of essentially what we call economics today. Certainly some guys had some of these ideas maybe here or there before that, but he kind of crystallized a lot of this, and a lot of people refer back to him for a lot of these economic ideas that sadly, it doesn't seem like there's an awful lot of people out there, especially those who call themselves socialists. Doesn't seem like they've learned any of that stuff. They've had a couple hundred years and they still haven't picked up on it. But so he's definitely an inspiring figure, and I think one of the things too to point out with him as well as being a moral philosopher. A lot of people think of economics as just this cold, the dismal science, a lot of people will call it. But he was much more concerned into the justice of why some people have things and others don't. And in this particular book, he was looking why some nations do better than others. But that's a big question, right? I mean, how is it that some people are better off than others? And that was what a lot of his pursuit was in. And I think it's really important that people understand that economics really spawned from the ideas of people who were trying to understand concepts of justice and how we have what we have. So I really thought this was an interesting quote of his. What do you think, Leon?
Well, Adam Smith should have called this section of his book "The Poverty of Nations," because this is how nations become poor. When the government intervenes too much into the economy, they drain our wealth through what they call taxes. They try to make taxes as the most moral thing that you can do. And that is why nowadays we hear we need to tax the rich. We need to tax the rich. The rich need to pay their fair share, and on and on and on. You're going with this damn nonsense. But it all gets back to this whole concept that Margaret Thatcher clearly stated, that things like socialism, which is what Adam Smith is talking about here, really and truly. He didn't use that word, but things like socialism, where you taking money away from one group of people and trying to give it to another. And in the meantime, of course, the government is always shaving off a little bit, they have to keep their cut of it, and before they pass it along to the intended citizens in their society. So the government keeps their share. They pass along a little bit of it, and it's a little bit of it because a lot of it goes through a lot of hands before it really gets to the quote-unquote poor, which you can talk about also. And so Margaret Thatcher said these things never work because you always run out of other people's money. You always run out of some limit of draining the pockets of your fellow citizens. And this is why this quote by Adam Smith is so on point that even at the beginning of our founding, someone recognized the danger of government trying to make its citizens poor. Now, they may not call it making them poor. They'll always have some fancy name like paying your fair share and all this other damn nonsense. But it's the same damn thing, taking money away from one group of people who are very productive, and then at the same time, giving the money to another group of people who choose to be unproductive. It is really, really an unfortunate set of things that we have that go on in our society that causes the poverty of a society. This very action by government.
And Leon, to be fair too, I mean, I don't think that the intent of those who go into government is to make its citizens poor, but the leech doesn't think that it's really doesn't really consider whether it's making the thing that it's leeching off of sick or weak, right? It just knows that it's leeching, right? It's doing its thing. and that's kind of like what's going on a lot of times with government, right? It's just there. It just doesn't, not actually trying to make them poor, but it's doing its extraction, right? I mean, that's what it's there for. It's fleecing us, we're the sheep in this scenario, right? And we are getting fleeced.
Yes. While I'll have to concede that point that the bureaucrats, the politicians, the bureaucrats, they do not go in there with the intent of making us poor. They don't have that clear intent, obviously. But when you see the poverty of nations all over the world, and all of them are rooted essentially in taxing away the wealth of its citizens. You see that have been tried over and over and over and over again. And what have happened? It have failed over and over and over again. And still politicians come along with some new name, some fancy program or all that kind of stuff that will do exactly the same thing. You have to wonder if this good intentions that they have is really just good intentions or some actual malice to make us poor. I don't know. They know that all of their programs end up with one thing, is dependency and misery. That's what it end up with. And if they continue to do it over and over again without learning any lessons in the process, you have to wonder if the intent is really to make us poor. Yeah. But yeah. I have to give you, I do concede your point, though. You're right. Most of the times, you're really good. Yes.
And, maybe there are some people out there who go into government with the intent that they just want to do some harm to other people. But I think a lot of them, they're just interested in seeing us as the sheep, as the chickens, and they are using us, they are coming to get that harvest every time off of us. And, I haven't heard of any sheep or chickens getting rich in that arrangement. But the person, managing that situation, usually the person in government, a lot of them seem to do pretty well. So yeah. Anyways, I think, I imagine Mr. Smith would concur with
Yes, I would think so too. I would think so.
Yeah.
It would probably make a good book to write about the poverty of nations, really. Whether it is intended or not, the poverty of nations, we should do a book about that.
Yeah, we just, it'll be a history of socialism.
Exactly right. My point exactly. My point exactly.
Well, let's get to the business of this government shutdown. We are going on under, I think, day 27, 28, something like that.
Yes.
Let's jump into an update on that. So we'll show a video here.
Tonight, impacts of the government shutdown intensifying, with key benefits on the brink of running out for millions more Americans.
We expect to see a huge influx in people utilizing the pantry.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture says SNAP food assistance will stop starting November 1st for about 42 million people. That same day, open enrollment begins for the Affordable Care Act, and premiums are expected to reach record highs. Nearly 4 million people are projected to drop their coverage next year if lawmakers allow the ACA subsidies that help lower those premiums to expire.
So missed SNAP benefits, delayed paychecks for federal workers. Sounds like an Affordable Care Act. It's going to have some problems with people who have their health insurance through that program. And not to mention we have issues with air traffic controllers that have been ongoing as well. Let's hear what the politicians have to say about it.
We need to assure Americans do not have their inflation, do not see their insurance premiums double overnight. And that's what's going to happen unless Republicans work with us to stop that.
Both sides blaming each other.
I would urge moderate Democratic senators to come across the aisle. We're starting to eat into muscle here.
Wasn't the Affordable Care Act supposed to make health care cheaper? It appears it's all a fiction, because if the government isn't backing it up, then suddenly we see the real price, which apparently is unaffordable. But let's find out if there's any end in sight.
And it doesn't look like the shutdown will end this week. House Democrats will come back to D.C., but House Speaker Mike Johnson hasn't called back Republicans. And the Senate will be here, but so far their votes to reopen the government have all failed.
So there you have it. And I just found the government shutdown clock at the White House. And we are in day 28, in case we've lost track of it. But yeah, it appears the SNAP issue and some of the military spending issues seem to be the big drivers of at least making people worried that or they think this will be the lever that maybe gets government, I guess, back up and running again. I don't know if it's ever up and running really, but except for these few issues, I mean, I still am not missing it. I don't know. What do you think, Leon?
Well, there's nothing to miss here. I mean, as I said before, and I say again, I hope they could shut down forever. I mean, we could get, as long as we could get the military paid and some of the other essential services paid, they could shut down forever as far as I'm concerned. There's a big story here that comes out of this that nobody's talking about. Here everybody now is lamenting the fact that 42 million people are going to be in this hardship because the SNAP program is going to run out of money this coming Saturday, and that is essentially the crisis. But the far bigger crisis in that story is, why do we have 42 million of our fellow citizens dependent on the government? This is a bad situation of dependency. But this is what politicians do. They set up these programs to look for votes, cause people so dependent. Well, God, I have to vote for politician X because he's going to protect my SNAP payments. Why? Why we have citizens so dependent upon government? Sure, I will understand in some cases we'll need people's help to help our fellow citizens, people who are disabled, they have mental challenges and that kind of stuff, and they can't earn a living. I'll be willing, even though I don't like the dependency of it, I'll be willing to give some leeway there. But I am sure these 42 million people that we are talking about in this thing, I am sure 99% of them are average, healthy individuals who could be working, who would not need the government. But here we have people reporting on this thing like this is some major crisis and not seeing the real crisis. It's a dependency is the issue here. I know for sure, I mean, you cannot solve that problem in the short term in the sense that, well, we could just say, well, no more SNAP and then everybody will go to work and that kind of stuff. But there's nobody talking about what we're going to do about these 42 million people who are dependent upon the government, where this dependency disease is ravishing their lives. And I'm sure most of these people on SNAP are people living within the inner cities of America or living in the Appalachians or up in that area. again, dependency in all forms. And nobody is discussing this. Nobody is highlighting something that is so obvious that's coming out of this shutdown. So this is why I would hope that, the government could stay shut down forever, quite frankly, because we could probably start dealing with the dependency problem that is embedded in this shutdown, that, it's been highlighted in this shutdown.
Yeah. Well, here's a few factoids, I guess, to when we talk about this issues of SNAP and some of the dependence programs and stuff that everybody's wringing their hands about right now with the shutdown looming. But yeah, this is an article from Cato, and you can kind of see over time the spending on the SNAP program. And you would assume if you had a program that was working, that was helping people, that if it was truly helping people, this line should be going down over time, right? I mean, exactly. You should be having some success. You should be helping people through a rough time, and they should be doing better. But what do we see with these government programs? Well, I guess this is pandemic spending, but still, you see these levels that are still really high. I mean, they're all elevated over the levels they were before the pandemic. Here's another little thing I just pulled up while we were talking, but this is a slightly dated chart. It's from the Census Bureau, but it has to do. It's on Wikipedia's page, but it's the war on poverty. It's the page it comes off of, and you can look from like the 50s to pretty close to current day. We're just short a decade here. That looks like relatively flat trend. If not, the numbers seem to be growing.
Yes.
Poverty. All it takes, it feels like, is for government to declare a war on something for us to lose it. Before we know what's going on, we've lost once the government declares war. So, I guess the smart person might be investing in white flags, maybe, once they hear the government declare they're going to war on something.
Yes, the government will be waving a lot of white flags pretty soon, if not already. And and you can see the numbers that is since the 1960s when Lyndon Johnson declared this great war on poverty. I mean, what have happened? Poverty won. Just like you said, the white flags are up. Poverty won. We have a huge bureaucracy now serving this dependency crisis, and they think they're just doing a wonderful job. We're just handing out our money that is earned through our hard work. They're just handing it out, just helping their fellow citizens. No one is being helped here. None. When you're creating this disease, when you're furthering this disease, no one is being helped. I mean, if we acknowledge, sure, there are people who may need help temporarily to get through some difficult times. Fine. No, I could accept that. But this permanent dependency that have been established within certain sectors of our society, it is immoral. And if not evil, it is certainly immoral, because you're putting people in a position where they become addicted to this sort of programs, and it's almost like a crack addict needing crack. It is so disgusting, it's unbelievable.
Well, I wish I had time to put something together on this before the show. It just occurred to me while we were talking about it, but my recollection is John Stossel did a piece a while back where he showed the graph, because you look at this and at least you could say, okay, well, about the time Lyndon Johnson comes into office, and I'm not quite sure what that year is, but I know it's right around the early 60s, right?
He came into office in 63 after the assassination of Kennedy.
Oh, okay. Well, then this even makes the point even better, because you can see that the trend is downward, right? Yes. Already before the war on poverty. So but I recall John Stossel talking about this too. A lot of people, they'll start the trend right when the war starts, right when they declared war on poverty. But if you look at it, the trend was already downward, right? Because literally the market was making everybody better off, and then you get a lot of government thrown in there, and that puts the brakes on everybody being better off. And pretty soon we start changing direction and going in the wrong direction. And you could see the same thing happen here in California with our, Gavin Newsom's war on homelessness, right?
Yes.
I don't think he ever called it the war on homelessness, but he had a plan when he was mayor in San Francisco, and we played the video clip from that on the show before. But he talks about his big plan to end homelessness in 10 years, and that was like 15 or 20 years ago. And since then, he's vaulted from mayor of San Francisco to governor of California, and in that same period, homelessness has exploded across the state. So
exactly.
And the spending on it has exploded as well, which just says, well, what the hell? We're spending more on it and we're getting more of it, right? It shows those perverse incentives that are going on when government decides to take the lead on something.
Well, just recently I was looking at a video, and I don't remember where I was looking at. Maybe it was on X. A reporter was interviewing a homeless guy, and the reporter was saying something like the government is paying people to be homeless. You're right, and everybody was shocked by that. She was interviewing a woman. A reporter was interviewing this guy. He said the government gives him $600 and something a month plus some sort of welfare benefits. No, not welfare benefits. Food stamps plus food stamps. So he's getting about $800-900 for doing nothing. And the guy said, well, why would I want to stop being homeless? The government is giving me $900 for me to sit on my behind and do nothing. Why would I want to do it?
You can't fault the guy's logic.
Exactly.
Playing in the incentives that Gavin Newsom is setting up for him, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's just nuts. But since we're running up near the end of our time with public access, I did want to squeeze in this other item before, and it's Prop 50, because that's going to be on the ballot next week, and the show will probably air on public access just before the election day there. So let's see if we can get an update on Prop 50. So this is kind of what's going on there.
$282.6 million. That's how much the California Department of Finance projects the upcoming statewide redistricting special election will cost the state. Specifically, in less than 2 months, Californians will head to the polls to take up statewide ballot measure Prop 50, formally asking voters to either approve or reject this newly proposed congressional map aimed at helping Democrats pick up 5 U.S. House seats.
$282 million that California taxpayers have to pay, not for anything related to California politics, but to help Democrats in national politics.
Well, it's outrageous and it needs to end.
San Diego Republican Assembly member Carl DeMaio says the special election is too costly for a state already facing a $12 billion deficit. He's against Prop 50, noting it will temporarily pause through the end of the decade California's voter-approved independent redistricting commission in charge of drawing congressional maps.
This latest memo confirms that the costs are spiking and financial losses that taxpayers will have to cover because of this unnecessary special election, so that politicians can try to seize power from the voters to manipulate the lines of their districts.
But Governor Gavin Newsom and his fellow Prop 50 supporters say the measure is necessary to fight back against red states as they advance President Donald Trump's plans to redraw congressional districts there in favor of Republicans.
I mean, these guys want to put America in reverse.
So if that wasn't bad enough, that we're spending $282 million for a statewide election that has nothing else but a ballot to help Democrats nationally, it turns out they made an error. And so they have to spend several million more in order to fix that error.
Taxpayers will spend at least $2 million correcting voter guides that have an inaccuracy in it. Those guides went out to some registered voters about the upcoming special election for Prop 50. Sources tell KCRA3. Prop 50, you may know, will ask voters to approve new congressional maps that have been redrawn by Democrats to help Democrats in future elections. Now, the map that's on page 11 of the voter guide incorrectly labels a congressional district as District 22. It should say District 27.
And if all that isn't bad enough, it turns out that it's not even a transparent process. KCRA's Ashley Zavala actually tried to find out who even drew these maps, because recall, these were supposed to be drawn, these districts, by a citizens commission, by an independent commission. And that was supposed to make this a more transparent and balanced process. And this grab by the Democrats in California is just an attempt to put power back in the hands of the legislatures.
I asked both the Democratic leaders of each elections committee who is responsible for drawing these new proposed congressional districts.
And whether or not were state lawmakers involved in drawing the maps, any state lawmakers at all?
Not to my knowledge.
But who adjusted them last night at 8 p.m.?
It was my understanding that they were by 8 a.m. They were out there.
No, Monday there's an adjustment.
There was a collaboration, but we can get to the people that actually did that work.
So then why does the legislation say the detailed maps are prepared by the Assembly and State Senate elections committees?
So the reality is that it was a collaboration, and we can get to those specifics, but I think what's most important is the maps are out there for people to see, to evaluate, to make a judgment on. The lines are the lines.
Madam Chair, but when you consume something, don't you want to know who makes it? When you are presented with something, don't you want to know where it's coming from? Don't voters deserve to know?
When I go to a restaurant, I don't need to meet the chef.
They deserve to know who drew these maps.
Again, this is the most transparent process. So then who drew the maps? This is the most transparent process. You're interested in that?
So the two women you just saw there, again, they are the leaders of the legislature's elections committees. Neither would really tell us who is responsible for these maps.
So there you go. The most transparent process ever of us getting fleeced out of almost $300 million.
Wonderful people.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I was just going to say, remind me of that quote from the beginning of the show where we talked about Mr. Adam Smith. And, it's there is no art which one government sooner learns of another than that of draining money from the pockets of the people. And almost $300 million, right, for something that doesn't directly benefit California. This is something that benefits the Democrat Party nationally. So there you go.
Well, these people are the most wonderful people on planet Earth. Excuse me. Because they're always trying to protect democracy. They're always trying to protect the rights of voters, but it always ends up being increasing their power. Okay, fine. Texas redrew their map, but it was legal for them to do that. Their state law is different from here in California, and I don't know why California have to violate its own laws and own constitution to go draw these new maps, because it's in the Constitution, if I'm not mistaken, that the California Constitution I'm talking about, that the independent commission is supposed to draw the maps. And I think it's specified every 10 years. I didn't think they allow for in the middle of the census period, which is every 10 years. I don't think it's legal to do that under that part of the Constitution that deals with this very issue.
This was literally rammed through, Leon, but unfortunately, when we talk about ramming things through, if you're watching on public access, we're out of time, but you can come to knuckleheadsofliberty.com and catch the rest of the show, where we're going to continue to talk about this issue, some happenings in Argentina. There was some exciting news for Liberty over there, sort of a cavalcade of TDS memories with some of the recent stuff we've been hearing, and some blast from the past on that. And finally, a little bit of a kind of weaselness from our governor at the end of the show. We'll talk about that too. But anyways, back to the show. So Leon, continue with your thoughts.
Yeah. So these weasels are always out to tell us how much they care about us, because everything that they do is because they want to protect the rights of voters, blah, 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 and all this damn nonsense. When the only thing they're trying to do is to protect their power base. That's all they're trying to do. Because look at these maps, these new maps. It's going to help the Democrats. Okay? Why in our state we should be doing anything that deliberately help the Democrats? I would be opposed to Proposition 50 if it was something that was meant to help the Republicans. I'll also be opposed to it. But I'm opposed to Proposition 50 because really and truly, it violates our law to start with, and it have nothing to do with California per se. It has to do with the national politics behind the congressional districts that where we live. But what does that have to do with promoting democracy? And this is all the things they're trying to sell us on, when it's a bunch of damn nonsense. And everybody knows that it's not about promoting the democracy. It's about promoting the power of the Democratic Party. And I didn't know that that's what our taxpayer dollars are to be used for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is supposed to be, the money that we spend on this is supposed to be for the benefit of the citizens of California. And the idea that what we're implicitly saying is, oh, how the Democrats do on the national scene is somehow, reflective of how things should be locally. And that's really not how our government was supposed to work in the first place, right? I mean, we're supposed to have all these states operating as different laboratories, right? Under the federal system umbrella of, sort of a few rules of the Constitution to keep everything coherent. And that's it. And unfortunately, has gotten really big since then. And in fact, maybe now's a good time to bring up some of those numbers we brought up last week, about the government shutdown, right? I mean, what are we talking about here? Well, I mean, this is debt. This is federal debt, right? And it's actually over, this is, like we said before, this is our Treasury, and they're a little bit behind on the clock here because we're actually over 38 trillion now. So they're a little bit slow on that. But the point of that graph, though, is look at it. I mean, this is implicitly the growth of government, right? I mean, when you see all this spending, that is money being extracted from the private sector, from you and me making decisions with our own resources, to government deciding how that's going to be used. And it's been committed deep into the future, $38 trillion into the future. And a lot of commitments beyond that as well. So because this doesn't capture all of those promises on, Social Security and Medicare and all the other stuff.
The unfunded liabilities. But within this graph that you're showing here, Jason, there's a very deep immoral thing that is going on, which is that we are spending money today and we're using debt, which our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will have to repay. And I think it is totally immoral to place burdens upon our children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren to take care of the debt spending that is now ongoing in our time. I think this is totally immoral. And this is a real problem with this graph. And nobody ever talk about it. Yeah, 38 billion, oh, it's a big number. Yeah, it's a big number, it's a big number. But nobody talk about the underlying immorality that is ongoing. And this is disgusting. I guess I'm repeating myself because I called something else immoral early on.
Yeah. Well, and note too, as a libertarian, I think this is an important feature, because if you look at these dates from where it really shows it taking off, it's from about it looks like it's around the late 70s, early 80s till current. And guess what? There were a lot of both Democrats and Republicans in control during those periods of time. So whether you consider yourself a Republican or a Democrat, both of your hands are dirty.
Very.
Yes. This is, ultimately, we're not going to fix this problem unless people wake up and stop just blindly voting with the two parties. I mean, people have to put front and center, I guess the morality of not thinking that they're going to get a free lunch from government, right? Because ultimately that's kind of an immoral thought. The idea that somehow government is magically going to get something and give it to you. Well, government doesn't, this is something every child should learn, and they don't. But it's that government doesn't actually create anything, right? It simply takes from some people and gives to others. So it's a highly immoral prospect here. If you think you're getting something free from government, it's being taken from somebody else somewhere along the way. And whether you're a billionaire and you're getting some kind of a nice deal on subsidies or something for some product you're making, or whether you're a person who's literally just looking for a free lunch. Either way, with the SNAP program, maybe or something, either way, that's coming from somebody else. It ain't free. And, we've gotten into a lot of this trouble by thinking that we can get a free lunch from government.
And this also highlights another thing we spoke about earlier, which is the dependency crisis. In that graph, this is what it is that's going on here. The government are creating all of these programs that are creating this massive sense of dependency among the citizens. We talk about the SNAP program. The other corporate welfare type programs. We talk about spending for homelessness. We could talk about the welfare payments that we have seen and all those things. We're taking away money from hardworking Americans to give to non-hardworking Americans, people willing to sit on their behind and talk about, oh, the government should give me this and the government should give me that, like if it's all free. But those dollars that are being transferred in and all of the debt spending is either we paying for it in the current time, or it's going to be paid for by our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. One or the other is going to happen. And the way it's looking right now is definitely our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be paying for these things. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, because guess what? The people who are easiest to take from in this scenario are the people who ain't around yet.
Exactly. Well, it's not only the people who ain't around us yet. That's a very good point. It's also the people who can't vote. Okay, that is under 18. They cannot vote, so it's very easy to take from them.
Yeah. And that's really I almost feel like we become a nation of vampires, right? I mean, we're just sucking off the young, and I just can't think of, I mean, if anybody considered themselves to be a religious person or anything else, I just can't imagine people getting together in a church and thinking, yeah, how are we going to victimize our youth today? That would be nuts. And yet that's in practice what we do constantly with our government is we are loading up these debts on our youth. And it's just absolutely immoral.
If I go a small tangent here, you go to some of these churches, these churches who are called themselves, they hail themselves as full gospel Bible believing churches and that kind of stuff. And you could go there during the week, right? Not on a Sunday, but go there during the week where they're helping people, teaching people how to become dependent upon the government. Okay, you could get enrolled in this program, you could enroll in that program, you could enroll in that program, and all this kind of stuff. Even though the 10th commandment tells you don't envy your neighbor's stuff. Don't go after it, your neighbor's stuff. It tells you that very clearly. But what do you think? What do these people think that they're envying? They're envying their neighbor's stuff. They're looking for their neighbor, the hardworking neighbor, to pay for their standard of living. And you see these Bible teaching churches telling these people, this is okay. This is madness.
I think they're bought into the idea that it's either a free lunch or it's some rich guy who ain't gonna miss a little bit, right?
Yeah, I guess,
yeah. But keep in mind this. Let me bring this up real quick again, just to show it. But this debt of 38 trillion, it's over right now. Like I said, this is slightly behind. That's how fast the debt is moving. They can't keep up with it. But if we wanted to take all the billionaires and apply what they had to this, it would just take off a small portion of it, right? Because together, Elon Musk and all those guys combined, Bill Gates and all of them, they only add up to maybe $7, maybe $8 trillion. That's right. So you have not solved the problem. So all those people like the Elizabeth Warrens and everybody else trying to make you imagine that you're just going to go, skewer the rich. Even if you took all of their stuff, now you got it, you're still in debt, and you haven't got them generating jobs and money anymore because you took everything from them, right? That's if you took it all. And now if you don't take it all, you're taking even a smaller amount off of them. Right? We have a spending problem. That's the crux of all this, right? We have to control our spending because we are doing this to our children and grandchildren's peril, as Leon has said.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I wish everybody will learn that we should not envy or covet our neighbor's stuff. I really wish everybody will learn that, and then maybe we'll adjust our behavior to be a little more moral.
Well, speaking of adjusting behavior, there's some interesting news going on in Argentina. We have talked about Mr. Javier Milei on our show in the past. In fact, he was he had the distinction of having our first Liberty quote of the day on this show was him, where it said, I didn't come here to guide lambs. I came here to awaken lions. And he's doing that in Argentina right now. He has, let me show this number here. That when this shows before and after Mr. Milei came into office here, the inflation rates. And you could see back in 2023 in the previous administration, inflation was, we think inflation is bad if it's getting above 3%, right? I mean, you're even starting to go above 2%. Well, it was already over 5% and rising. And by the time Milei took office, it was already breaking over 25%. And from what this chart is showing is that his administration has now brought it to those levels that we think are kind of a healthy economy at that point. Now, they got a lot of other problems that they're dealing with, but this is one of those countries that bought into that lie that we seem to be buying into with that chart, that I'm showing here. I mean, this is the lie. We're buying into it right now. We're climbing the mountain, or rather digging the hole that they think of this as getting to ride high means we're digging a hole. Just flip this thing around, I guess, is really the way to think about it, about how hard it's going to get out.
We're just climbing a mountain of debt, so we could still say climb. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, but Javier Milei is getting them out, but that's not a sure thing. A lot of countries, they get into that kind of trouble, and a lot of times it's huge despair. People, complete lives uprooted. Maybe wars happen. All kinds of terrible things happen when you start heading in this direction. And here we have somebody in Argentina who is turning it around, and there's some stumbles along the way. He's got a whole lot of socialists that he has to get in line there. So it's not easy drifting, but and there's some other news too there that we just recently had a little bit of a bailout of their currency. I think it was because I guess markets got spooked because it sounds like his sister is involved in a potential corruption scandal on a cryptocurrency, and I think there was some other sort of a potential kickback thing of pharmaceuticals or something. So, and I'm not sure if there's anything to it, but it's a fragile coalition, right? The world is not, we know from this country, the world is not made up of 90-something% libertarians, right? We're a tiny percent here in this country. We're just a few percent at best, right? I mean, I don't think we've ever been over 3% in the national elections, on these things. So, this is what he's dealing with there. Somebody who's unabashedly libertarian, Austrian economist, and he's holding together a very fragile coalition. So, I mean, if there's any kind of whiffs of scandal or anything else, it gives fuel to all those socialists who don't want to go the way he's saying, right? Who want to get back on that mountainous track we're showing over here. So, I don't know. What do you think, Leon?
Well, there is some good news about in terms of the Malay's message getting out to the people, because the congressional elections, I think on Sunday or something like that, and his party or his coalition, who is now holding a majority in the House. I think they call it House of Delegates, or House of something, or the Assembly, or whatever it is equivalent to our House of Representatives. So somehow or the other, his message is getting through. While you're right, there have been some stumbles along the way. There's the entrenched bureaucracy that he's trying to deal with. He have been able to cut out some of the agencies and all that kind of stuff, but there's still some serious entrenchment that have not yet been dealt with. And until he deals with that, he's gonna have some problems in getting his programs in place, which is badly needed in Argentina. Argentina came out of a whole period of where they had military juntas ruling the country, and then they went into some form of democracy, but it was never really good because the military was always in the background, always still trying to direct quote unquote traffic. But then Milei came along with his libertarian message, and I didn't give him very much chance of success, because
I don't think anybody did.
No, you're right. No, it's true. I'm going to admit it, and I think I said this on this program, because the military is in the background of all of these things, and they hold a very powerful position in Argentina. Okay, some of the old guard is still left over in there and that kind of stuff. And so far, though, he have somehow been able to push through his program without any sort of interference from the military. So I hope that keeps up. Okay, and now that he has a majority.
Leon, continue your thought real quick. I have to go shut something off here.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I do hope he's able to keep that progress that he's making, despite the fact the stumbles are on, despite the fact that there have been some little hiccups along the way. This scandal with his sister is a potential problem, but so far that scandal have not touched him. So as long as he could keep that majority that he has in his Congress, I don't know if that's the correct word for their representatives. As long as he could keep that majority, and as long as he could keep the drive going, it would seem like his message is getting out, and it would seem that he could have some success in turning Argentina around. I mean, Jason just showed the graph of inflation, which so far is quite a success, something that should be applauded.
Yeah. Yep. And that was the graph we were just showing there for a second.
Right,
this
yeah.
is from the article called the what is it? The GRIST, the GISReportonline.com. So,
yes.
Okay. So, yeah. But anyways, so I think this is an important story of hope, I guess, for all of the hopelessness we see in our own policies when we look at where this debt is headed, and when we see the turmoil in our own politics and the never-ending, I guess, selfishness of people wanting to constantly have government do something to serve them at other people's expenses, right? I mean, this is where it goes, and what Javier Milei, he told the people when he got there, he just said, "No hay plata," there is no money, right? Yeah. And he's managed to miraculously make that case to people who been weaned on socialism, and I think it's inspiring, to say the least. So,
but Javier Milei and I think Donald Trump to some extent is really exposing this worldwide phenomena of the dependency crisis that we see in our respective societies. That people, the individual citizens, are so caught up with the government solving their problems for them, and they become so dependent upon government that we are digging a hole or climbing a mountain of debt to try to solve the problems of other people. We are taking one group of people, giving money to somebody else. We are trying to solve the problems for the other people who are, quote unquote, receiving the money. But this is a worldwide problem. This dependency crisis is really a worldwide problem. If you look at Europe, of course, was the cradle of Western civilization, and now the cradle of Western civilization is now being destroyed internally, not being attacked by a foreign army, not being attacked by some Martians from outer space, but internally, where you see, take Greece. Greece, for example, they were once a prosperous, successful nation. Greece virtually went bankrupt in around 2010, 2011. And the other ones of Spain was in difficulties. But it all have to do with the dependency crisis created by this socialist notion of taking money from one group of people and giving it to someone else. So it's a worldwide crisis. We do not have this problem alone. It's a worldwide crisis. This dependency crisis are destroying countries. It really is.
Yep. And this is all, the fruits of socialism, and having your government control the education and all those bad things, and that's, in fact, that's what Javier Milei said when he went into office. He says, afuera, get rid of it, all these different government entities, and I am pretty sure that whatever their Department of Education was, that was probably on that list of afuera. I know it would be for Trump if he were able to, but he's done about as much as he can to hobble our Department of Education.
Right.
But speaking of Trump, though, this this does get us to some recent, Trumpism. It's funny. I mean, Trump is somebody who does drive a lot of people crazy, even people who maybe even are friendly to him, people who might be on his side. Some of us in the liberty movement, it's sort of like one day, hey, that's a thing he did. And then the next day it's like, I can't believe this guy. You want to tear your hair out, right? But for some people, that's every day for them. And so this is one of those guys that I wanted to show here, and this is Eric Swalwell, Congressman Swalwell. That was the guy who, remember, was sleeping with Chinese spies.
Yes.
While he was on the yes. Yes. Well, he is so triggered right now by this ballroom that Trump is building onto the White House, and he's building it with private money. It's not costing the taxpayers anything. And that's got Swalwell so upset that he's saying whoever wins for the Democrats has to vow to destroy it. when they become president. And I guess they kind of, somebody must have gotten to him and brought him to a little bit more to his senses, and he says, well, whatever it is, we're just going to rename it the Obama Ballroom. So, but I think it's important to note that this isn't like, this would seem like nuts, right? The idea that you see a president, he's adding a ballroom to the White House, and the opposition isn't saying, oh, okay, well, maybe he's got the wrong focus. He needs to be focused on something else. But the idea, well, we're just going to destroy it. Right? Well, this is kind of what we call TDS, right? Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Yes.
And just to take you down memory lane of a bunch of other stories that happened when Trump was in office before, you just can't make this stuff up, right? I mean, things that the press was focused on. This is a CNN story from back in 2017. They literally devoted a story to the fact that Trump gets 2 scoops of ice cream while everyone else gets 1. They wrote a story about this, right? Because apparently at a White House function, Trump asked for a second scoop of ice cream. Now, I've never seen all those images we've seen of Joe Biden walking around eating ice cream in front of all the reporters and everything. Exactly. Yeah. Right? Well, nobody else had any. Okay. But, okay, maybe just this one story. Nope, but it doesn't end there. Here's a story from Business Insider. This was from, oh gosh, I know it's from around the same time period, I guess, but it's Trump's salt and pepper shakers tower over everyone else. Obama, Bush, Clinton used the same size shakers as their guests. I mean, they took the time to write a story about this, that Trump had a bigger salt and pepper shaker. You can't make this stuff up, but it goes on. There was a story where Trump went to Japan, and he was with the prime minister there, and he was feeding the koi fish in the pond with the prime minister. And this is how CNN, notice too, where there's a lot of CNN stories we're getting this out of. Right. Kind of shows you where, cult news network, and the TDS that was going on there. But it says Trump feeds fish, winds up pouring entire box of food into koi pond. And so what people were trying to make this out as is that Trump had no decorum, and what a brute, and he just has no. Well, it turned out that was a fake story as well. PolitiFact wrote up the story, and it turned out that Trump was following the lead of the Prime Minister of Japan when he threw his food in first, and Trump simply followed suit. And all they did was deceptively edit the video to not show the Prime Minister on CNN do this, but then they showed Trump do it. And there you go. There's your fake news that we're talking about. And, of course, there's the classic. This was after the Charlotte, riot that happened, the demonstrations there, where a woman got killed because a guy drove his car through the crowd. And there were some people there who declared themselves to be white supremacists. And the idea was they were defending a statue. Now, there were people who weren't white supremacists who were also defending the statue. And so Trump had made the statement that there were very fine people on both sides. Okay. And the Atlantic said, how on earth? And it wasn't just the Atlantic, by the way, it was CNN and all the other usual suspects. Exactly. And you still hear some of these people and some of these politicians say it to this day. Well, here's Snopes, and it took them a while. This is a 2024 article, but it said, no, Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people because they recognized that he literally said, and I'm not talking about the white supremacists.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So this is, just nuts. It's time and time again we see the same stuff. So, I mean, getting back to this story, right, and you wonder how anybody could get this deranged. Well, you see, we've been living through this for a while. So, sorry, Leon, normally this is something I would have made a video about. I didn't have time. What do you think, Leon?
We could sit here and laugh at all of this, Jason, and it's a lot of it is funny, obviously, but this Trump derangement syndrome that is going on in the media and in the print, both print and broadcast, could sometimes get quite dangerous. These people are so deranged in their hatred of Donald Trump. They covered up for a half-dead man to sit in the White House for 4 years. They covered all of that up just because they hated Donald Trump. Plain and simple. I mean, Joe Biden was doing all sorts of things that clearly showed his cognitive decline. Clearly, without a doubt, showed it. But everybody was saying, oh, he's as sharp as a tack. He's as sharp as a tack. I mean, we had Joe Scarborough talking about, oh, I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you can't handle the truth, F you, and all these sort of things. This is the best Biden ever. Yep. But this is the problem. We have a man who's in serious cognitive decline, sitting in the White House, unchallenged for the most part, just because of this Trump derangement syndrome. This is where this syndrome got dangerous. Really, really dangerous. And this nonsense from Eric Swalwell about these people have to tear down the ballroom that Trump is building, which, as you rightfully point out, is being built without the use of taxpayer dollars. So what about all the other renovations that was done or building that was done in the White House by other presidents? Obama built a basketball court. Do you want to tear that down?
Nixon built a bowling alley.
JFK had a pool where he used to host his female companions. That's what they say. All right, I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. And all this, and going all the way back, the way we have different presidents have done many things. Do you want to destroy those two, or you only want to destroy the renovation and building that was done under Donald Trump? This is the derangement. This is the Trump derangement syndrome that is so dangerous. And if, God forbid, Biden might have done something truly, truly disastrous, but the media allowed this man to sit in this office, for 4 years, unchallenged. This is a real scandal about this media. these people who are protected by our First Amendment.
Well, this is something. It just if the Democrats had not become so deranged and their media lackeys hadn't become so deranged with all of this TDS, we wouldn't have Trump. I mean, it's that simple, right? I mean, if these were literally the socialists of 15 years ago, socialist light. A lot of these guys advertised themselves at, not even 15 years ago, but, going back to, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, there wouldn't be a Trump. I mean, if Trump were running against the Bill Clinton of the 90s, I think Bill Clinton would have won, right?
True.
I mean, this is just because he seemed like he's kind of in the center. I mean, and his biggest failing seems to be that he can't keep it in his pants, right? Well, I mean, and of course, being a libertarian, I'm not crazy about a lot of his policies, but it wasn't completely derangement land. I mean, they weren't trying to trans the kids. They weren't trying to just do all of these nutty things, like having dudes in women's sports and just telling us that's normal, right?
Yes, exactly.
While they watch a woman get smashed in the face harder than she's ever been hit.
Yes.
And we're all just, how brave, how beautiful.
How beautiful. And one of these women who hit with one of those volleyballs have some kind of permanent damage, actually brain damage or something like that. Because some dude pretending to be a woman is playing against in a volleyball game. I mean, this is and politicians defending this. This is the worst kind.
And 15 or 20 years ago, it's funny. I mean, as a libertarian, I'm for much more open borders, but it's in conjunction with getting rid of the welfare state, right? And you've got to, and people like Bernie Sanders, who didn't want to get rid of the welfare state, saw a good reason to keep those borders up, right? And yet somehow they want to have the socialism now and get rid of the borders, which is just insanity. And that's what we saw during the Biden administration. So, I mean, these people have become so crazy. That's why we have Trump, because Republicans really didn't want Trump the first time around. Right? If you think about how Trump came to power, it's because there was a big field and he picked them off one by one, growing from like 20% to eventually picking up a few more and showing the others to be weak. And eventually he ate up the entire field. If he had been going up against one Republican from the beginning of that race, he would never have been a thing. Right. So
I think Marco Rubio might have been president before Donald Trump ever became president, if not for this derangement and all this nonsense that was going on
it's really only because the Democrats went so crazy and the Republicans didn't seem to have any spine to stand up to any of it. That's why we have Trump. I mean, it's that simple. So
So it's so disgusting to see this, that this is what our politics have become. This derangement that say that anything Donald Trump do, we have to oppose. This is the kind of mentality. Everything. It doesn't matter what he do. He could probably go piss on the sidewalk, and they're gonna say, well, we're gonna oppose that. Okay, fine. Maybe if Donald Trump ever got to that, he stuff. But if you feed a little dove in the rose garden of the White House, we have to be opposed to that too, because something is wrong with that. This is the derangement that's going on. Jesus Lord.
Well, and the funny thing is, I mean, just one more thing to add to the derangement heap that we're talking about here, but think about what they're saying about Trump, doing this remodeling and adding on this ballroom to the White House. They're using terms like he's bulldozing the White House. He's tearing things down. Where were they when in 2020 when rioting mobs of leftists were going through blue cities, burning and tearing down everything, including monuments, right? Yes. And you're concerned now about the history of the White House when he's simply adding a ballroom that is probably going to make a lot of new historical memories that I mean, at one point there wasn't a White House, right? Should we not have built that then? Because, oh my God, there was some history to the ground underneath the White House, so we can't do anything, This is just kind of nuts.
But this is just a point, that whenever the left does something that we find objectionable, it becomes okay. You just ask where were they when they were burning down the cities and all that. You know where they were, Jason? They were on CNN and MSNBC telling us they were mostly peaceful protests, telling us that it was fiery but mostly peaceful. That's where they were. That's where they were. And this insanity was able to go on for a whole summer here in 2020.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't have that image at my fingertips, or I'd throw that up again, because that's such a condemnation of the media, to have a reporter with the chyron underneath him, fiery but mostly peaceful protests from, of course, CNN. And you see fires blazing behind
in his background.
Yeah, that's literally the level of derangement that brought us a Trump. Right. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. But anyways, we are getting near the end of our show, and we have a particularly bad political situation in California where we have one party rule here, and we have a real weasel of a governor who is just keeps digging the hole deeper for us every time we turn around. Well, he was caught in a few kind of big whoppers this week. So we've got a special segment here for Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and I think it's best characterized as "Pop Goes the Weasel." So let's watch.
Being from California, we've always got to put up with this weasel of a governor that we have, who always seems to be popping off about things that are just exaggerations or just downright dishonest. Well, it's been a busy week for our governor. Let's find out what's been popping for him.
My mom was 19, pregnant, and divorced a few years later with 2 kids, came from no money, and just hustled, worked hard, grinding every single day. And she just taught me hard work and grit. And I struggled, couldn't really read or write, bounced around a bunch of different schools. And she said, we got to get out of San Francisco.
Needing to get out of San Francisco might be the only honest sentiment that he revealed in that whole line of BS. Let's continue.
And so I was out there kind of raising myself, turning on the TV, started, just getting obsessed, sitting there with the Wonder Bread and 5 stacks of,
it's like the White Stack Live story.
Yes, you heard that right. Gavin Newsom, born into one of the most politically powerful machines in California, friend to the Gettys, Nancy Pelosi, I think it's his aunt or something. Apparently he was born into poverty and really had to pull himself up by his own bootstraps, according to Gavin Newsom. Just, and the fact, too, that he said Wonder Bread, I mean, anybody who actually grew up poor knows you're probably eating generics, okay? But Gavin didn't know that, right? Let's hear some of the other nonsense that went on in that interview.
All this anti-woke stuff is just anti-black, period, full stop. All the CRT, ESG, DEI stuff, that's all this is. It's this great purge, and it's happening in real time, and I'm sitting here, and I feel like, luckily I'm governor, but we're not doing enough.
Right. Yep, there you go. Apparently anti-woke is anti-black, according to Gavin Newsom. Of course, in reality, that woke ideology is actually the racism itself. When you literally say that black people need extra support when nobody else does, right? That's kind of the racist ideology. But, Gavin's pandering, so I got to give him that. But this wasn't the only crazy interview he did. Megyn Kelly also caught him in a lie as well.
So here's what Gavin said to Charlie when Charlie was sitting on his set about Gavin Newsom's own son, Sot 1.
Last night, trying to put my son to bed, he's like, no, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is the point.
You canceled school for 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding.
So that's Gavin pretty much describing his son as a fan. And here he is now sort of disowning that statement.
Here's Gavin Newsom on CNN Monday with an entirely different description of what went down, Sot 2.
That's your son, obviously a fan of Charlie Kirk. What was the conversation like between you and your son after Charlie Kirk was assassinated?
Well, he called me, I don't know how he got a phone, but he called me from school that day, really alarmed. And all his friends were around the phone that wanted me to somehow express or understand what was going on. He wanted to know if he was dead. He wasn't a fan of him as much as he was familiar with him. And it was very revelatory for me because he's also out there. My son is 11, 12 years old. He's sitting there talking to me about not just Charlie Kirk, but folks like Andrew Tate. And
so there you go. So Gavin Newsom, poor guy. He's been a victim all his life. Yeah, he's just finally getting his turn at a deluxe apartment in the sky. I don't know. But I tell you, though, I think we caught him in another lie that Megyn Kelly didn't catch in that last bit. And he said in that video piece that his son was 11 or 12. Well, here's a story about his family. And he has 2 sons and 2 daughters. And there they are in the picture. And one of them, this is his son Hunter, apparently, was he was born in 2011. Well, that means that he must be at least 14 or 15 years old right now, right? Because we're in 2025. And here is his other son, and this is, let's see, Dutch. And he was apparently born in 2016, which means that he is about 9 years old. Gavin literally was just saying his son, who was 11 or 12 years old. So he's lying so much, he can't even keep track of the real ages of his kids. I mean, this guy is a sociopath. Certainly a weasel. I don't know. But, and keep in mind, too, this is a guy who literally cheated on his first wife with his campaign manager's wife, too, and all that. And I don't want to sit here and just judge one complex piece of somebody's life. But, I mean, man, you take it into context with the endless lies this guy does. It's just...
You know, Jason, honestly, I have to object just a little bit here. Really, I do, because I think calling our governor a weasel is really a disservice to the weasels, really and truly. Really, it's a disservice to all the weasels in the world. And I expect to get some very, very bad letters from the weasels of the world that we are calling our governor a weasel,
But we don't care about those weasels because they're all probably voting Democrat anyway. They're probably not watching this show.
I mean, this guy gave weasels a bad reputation. I'm serious. Gavin Newsom. Now, when you sit down and listen to this guy, you can't even, not an honest word could ever come out of his mouth. Seriously. I mean, even look at these simple things. The age of his son. I mean, geez, or maybe we are misunderstanding. Maybe the man has some other children that we don't know about. That's another possibility. He's such a weasel, it's quite possible. I don't know,
Yeah, he might be a real player. I mean, he was just on an NBA show. Maybe he's got one of those kind of lives that we don't know about, where he's traveling California cities and leaving kids everywhere.
Everywhere, who knows? We don't know. I mean, man doesn't make weasels look bad. So who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? I mean, Gavin need to go to some rehab for pathological liars. That's what he needs. He need rehab. He really does.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we're kind of stuck with him until the cult finally comes to its senses and stops being such a cult here in California. Maybe we could break away from voting for this parade of awfuls that keep coming through our government. Yeah. Well, I think that about sums up the show tonight. Leon, do you have any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Stop calling Gavin a weasel, because you're making weasels look bad. You're really making the weasels look bad.
Sympathy for the weasel.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've about reached the end of our show tonight. So yeah, if you're watching, you can see all these people kind of, taking away our liberty just a little bit at a time. And, it ain't going to stop by itself. They got lucky in Argentina. They had a miracle that they got a guy like Milei come here. But I tell you, we can't wait for a miracle. You all got to get up and do something on your own to move the ball for liberty as well, or you ain't going to have it. You're going to lose it to that free lunch that somebody else is looking for from government. So, be thinking about what you can do to move the ball for liberty before the next show. And until then, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.